January 1941. Moscow is cloaked in a bitter, relentless cold. Snow crunches beneath the boots of Red Army officers, frost clinging to their fur collars. Inside a dimly lit intelligence office, a man leans over a stack of decrypted messages, cigarette smoke curling toward the low ceiling. His name, Richard Sorge, spy, analyst, ghost. You can almost feel the tension in the room. Sorge's eyes, sharp and unblinking, scan the latest intelligence from Tokyo. Each line of code whispers a secret the world isn't supposed to hear. Japan will not attack the Soviet Union. Not now, not this year. The Germans, hammering at Moscow's gates with Operation Typhoon, are preparing to finish what their blitzkrieg started. But if Stalin listens, there is a chance, a slim, almost impossible chance, to turn the tide. Sorge taps the desk, impatient. His message will need to reach Stalin's inner circle, but not just any way. The German spies are everywhere. Moscow is crawling with informants. One wrong step, one intercepted telegram, and the warning dies before it breathes. Meanwhile, thousands of kilometers away in Siberia, the men are ready. Or so it seems. Elites of the Red Army, wrapped in white winter camouflage, frost forming on their helmets, know nothing of the orders about to reach them. They train on frozen fields, T-34s parked like silent beasts in the snow, engines idling under a frozen sky. You can almost hear the rumble, low and menacing, ready to be unleashed, but their destination is still a secret. Sorge's intelligence is more than a tip. It's a lifeline. Moscow's leadership will soon have to make a decision that could cost millions of lives. Do they move the Siberian divisions west, risking exposure? Or do they stay put, letting the Wehrmacht crush the capital? The clock is ticking. The Germans are already within striking distance. Every day, every hour matters. And in the shadows of Stalin's office, a quiet tension grips the city. Will the warning reach the Kremlin in time? Will Siberia's frozen warriors even get the order to move? A single telegram, a whisper in the chaos, might change everything. February 5th, 1941. The Ural Mountains stretch like jagged teeth against a gray sky, snow whipping across the tracks. You can almost hear the steel rails groan under the weight of what is about to happen. Deep inside a Siberian rail depot, engineers and railway clerks move with silent urgency. Among them is one unremarkable clerk, a man whose name history would barely remember. But today, he is the linchpin of a plan so audacious it borders on madness. Hundreds of T-34 tanks sit in the snow, their barrels pointed skyward like frozen sentinels. Artillery wagons are loaded with precise calculations. Enough shells, enough fuel, enough rations for a march hundreds of kilometers long. Every crate, every wagon, every crewman has to be in perfect order. One mistake, one misplaced order, and the Germans could spot the movement, and the plan would fail. The clerk checks his timetable again, eyes narrowing at the faint pencil marks. No one knows the full schedule, not the Wehrmacht, not the Japanese, not even most of the Red Army. This is a migration of steel and men, thousands of troops moving across frozen wastelands in complete secrecy. Guards patrol the perimeter, but the real secret lies in the quiet. Trains are disguised, decoy freight cars interspersed, false manifests submitted. To anyone watching from afar, it looks like routine supply traffic, ordinary Siberian winter trains. Outside, the wind screams over the plains. You can almost feel the chill biting through layers of fur, the kind of cold that freezes spit midair. Soldiers load their gear, their boots crunching on ice, faces pale, breaths misting. They don't yet know where they are going, only that they move at the behest of a mysterious order from the highest command. Stalin himself has signed it, and the Soviet High Command has kept it sealed. And then the engines roar to life. Steam bursts into the sky. Wheels grind against iron rails. Car by car, train by train, the Siberian divisions begin their westward march, a phantom army threading through mountains, forests, and icy rivers, invisible to enemy eyes. German intelligence sees nothing. Japanese spies see nothing. Only Sorge's warnings pulse silently through the Kremlin, guiding every decision. The impossible is happening. A full army, elite and battle-ready, is relocating thousands of kilometers under the noses of the Axis powers, with only the quiet heroism of one railroad clerk and a few loyal engineers keeping it alive. And yet the biggest challenge has yet to come. How do you move thousands of men and hundreds of tanks across a continent without anyone noticing? March 10, 1941. The convoy snakes through Siberia like a steel serpent, tracks glinting under a weak winter sun. The air is thick with smoke and the scent of oil, mingling with the biting cold that turns fingers numb in seconds. Every soldier aboard knows the drill: silence, discipline, readiness. Outside the cars, blizzards howl over forests and frozen rivers, threatening to bury the tracks under layers of ice. One misstep, one delayed bridge repair, and the entire operation could grind to a catastrophic halt. You can almost hear the quiet tension in the crews, whispers officers double-check maps, signaling with gloved hands through frosted windows. The T-34s, massive and menacing even under frost, wait like predators, ready to leap into a battlefield hundreds of kilometers away. Every wagon carries more than steel and ammunition. It carries hope, desperation, and the secret lifeline of Moscow itself. Railway clerks like the unremarkable hero at the depot work around the clock. Timetables are adjusted mid-route, signals falsified, decoy shipments sent in loops to confuse any prying eyes. German reconnaissance planes fly east, scanning for movement, yet see only endless white plains and routine freight. For them, Siberia remains empty and silent. Stalin's gamble is unfolding perfectly. But the cold is relentless. Some locomotives nearly freeze mid-journey. Soldiers huddle together, sharing body heat, praying for warmth, praying for speed. Supplies run perilously low in spots. An officer mutters under his breath, knowing that even a single broken rail could expose thousands of men to disaster. Meanwhile, Sorge's reports continue to arrive in Moscow, confirming Japan's intentions. Stalin reads each telegram with a quiet intensity. He knows that every hour these Siberian troops move west, he inches closer to salvaging the defense of the capital. Yet he also knows that Hitler's blitzkrieg is advancing relentlessly. Every train car is a lifeline. Every mile gained is a day bought for Moscow's survival. And then whispers ripple through the command. Some German scouts are near. Not enough to spot the full scale, but enough to threaten exposure. Can the trains keep their phantom march unnoticed? Or is the Wehrmacht about to see the largest secret movement in military history? Early April 1941. The white plains give way to the shadowed outskirts of Moscow. Steam rises from the locomotives like specters in the pre-dawn light, curling over forests and frozen rivers. The men have been on the move for weeks, weary, frostbitten, but alive. You can almost hear the creak of iron wheels, the distant clank of tank tracks, and the heavy breathing of soldiers readying themselves for a battle they haven't yet seen. As the first Siberian divisions disembark, officers survey the frozen roads leading into the city. T-34s roll into position, engines growling, their camouflage melting into the snow. Artillery is assembled with practiced efficiency. These troops, trained in the harshest Siberian winters, are unmatched in endurance and morale. Every soldier knows the stakes. Moscow cannot fall, not while they stand. Stalin watches from the Kremlin, face taut, as reports arrive of the first unit's positions. He has gambled on secrecy, on timing, on Sorge's intelligence, and on the resilience of these men. Every report confirms the impossible. The army moved thousands of kilometers without detection, arriving battle-ready to confront the Wehrmacht. It is a logistical miracle, an act that few outside these walls will ever truly comprehend. And then the German advance appears on the horizon. Panzer divisions have reached the outskirts, thinking Moscow is vulnerable, thinking winter-weary Soviet troops are depleted and demoralized. They are not expecting the Siberian elite to emerge from the snow like ghosts. Tanks roll forward, but for every German panzer, there is a T-34 turret spinning, crew ready. Artillery erupts, shaking the frozen ground. Snow plumes into the air with every shell fired. The clash is instantaneous and brutal. You can almost feel the shock of the German commanders as reports come in. Fresh Siberian troops, fully armed, fully rested, have struck their flank. They had not anticipated this. Hitler's blitzkrieg, designed to crush Moscow swiftly, meets a wall of steel and fury unlike anything they imagined. And yet, amidst the roar of battle, a quiet thought ripples through the Red Army ranks. One man's careful planning, one clerk's meticulous work, and a single spy's warnings have changed the course of history. But will it be enough to save Moscow completely? April 15, 1941. Smoke hangs heavy over the outskirts of Moscow, mixing with the frost that clings to every tree and rooftop. The Germans, once confident in their rapid advance, stumble into an unexpected resistance. You can almost hear the frustration in their radios, panicked commands, desperate attempts to regroup, reports of missing bridges, frozen terrain, and now, Siberian divisions they never imagined. The T-34s roar through snow-packed roads, their tracks carving deep furrows into the icy ground. Artillery shells tear through the German formations, shaking the frozen earth. Soldiers clad in white camouflage disappear into the snow, reappearing like phantoms to strike from unexpected directions. The Wehrmacht realizes, too late, that they are not facing an exhausted, beaten army. They are facing reinforcements that were invisible until the moment they struck. Inside the Kremlin, Stalin finally allows himself a moment of quiet relief. Reports of success flood in. German advances stalled, morale of Soviet troops surging, Moscow's defenses holding firm. Each update is a testament to months of planning, secrecy, and courage, not only of generals and soldiers, but of a single, unnoticed railroad clerk whose meticulous work orchestrated the movement of an entire army. And Sorge, even miles away in Tokyo, still under cover, his intelligence has accomplished what few thought possible. He predicted the Japanese would not attack, which allowed Stalin to commit Siberia's frozen legions to Moscow. One man's insight, combined with the courage of thousands, has begun to shift the momentum of the Eastern Front. But the battle is far from over. The Germans will regroup. The Red Army, despite its newfound strength, faces an enemy that is desperate, ruthless, and capable of extreme measures. The Siberian troops are fresh, yes, but the winter-weary veterans in Moscow know that their resolve will be tested in ways that even the most meticulous planning could not anticipate. And in the back of every Soviet officer's mind, one question lingers. Can this invisible army, moved thousands of kilometers in secrecy, continue to hold the line against the might of the Wehrmacht? Late April 1941. The snow begins to melt around Moscow, turning frozen fields into slushy, treacherous ground. Soldiers slog through mud and ice, tanks groaning as they maneuver into defensive positions. The battle is brutal, but the Siberian troops hold. You can almost feel the exhaustion in their movements, the tension in every glance exchanged between commanders and men. Yet beneath it all lies a quiet triumph. They arrived in time. But victory carries a hidden cost. Every train car that carried tanks and troops westward demanded perfect timing and absolute silence. One misstep, one clerk's error, one misread signal could have exposed thousands to annihilation. Many in the Soviet hierarchy understand that history will rarely acknowledge the quiet heroes, the engineers who repaired tracks under blizzards, the telegraph clerks who falsified manifests, the railway workers who kept locomotives from freezing. Without them, the army never would have reached Moscow. Meanwhile, Sorge continues his work in Tokyo, walking the fine line between spy and soldier, life and death. He knows that even a single intercepted message could unravel the plan. Yet the gamble has paid off. Stalin's gamble has paid off. Moscow's survival now depends not just on strategy or brute force, but on secrecy, trust, and the courage of individuals operating in shadows. And then a chilling thought spreads through the Red Army. If Hitler realizes the scale and timing of the Siberian transfer, he will not retreat quietly. He will strike harder, faster, and with even more desperation. The Wehrmacht has underestimated the USSR once, but now they know something unseen, unstoppable, has arrived at their front. The frozen plains of Siberia are empty again, the phantom army having left only tracks and whispers behind. But the war is far from over. Every general knows that one miscalculation could undo months of meticulous planning. And somewhere, the German High Command begins to ask, how did they move an entire army under our noses, without us ever noticing? May 1941. The German advance falters outside Moscow. Panzer divisions that once tore through Poland and Ukraine now meet resistance that seems impossible. You can almost hear the disbelief in German command rooms, officers exchanging frantic messages. Their maps redrawn in panic. The fresh Siberian troops, rested and strategically positioned, are no ordinary reinforcements. They are a force the Wehrmacht didn't even know existed. The T-34s charge with a mechanical roar that echoes across frozen forests and fields. Infantry, clad in snow-white camouflage, appear from tree lines and riverbanks, striking the flanks of armored columns. Artillery crews fire with deadly precision, turning roads into choked corridors of destruction. Each engagement pushes the Germans backward, forcing retreats where none were expected. Inside the Soviet command posts, generals glance at each other in disbelief, as if they can't quite believe what they see. The Siberian divisions, moved thousands of kilometers in secret, are holding the line and pushing the enemy back. Stalin watches quietly, knowing that the gamble of secrecy, speed, and precise intelligence has changed the fate of Moscow. Yet the most remarkable part remains invisible to the world. The railroad clerk who orchestrated the movement from Siberia, the engineers who kept tracks and engines running in temperatures below -30 degrees C, and Sorge's intelligence, the silent network that allowed the USSR to summon an entire army without the Germans ever noticing. They remain unknown, but their impact is undeniable. But victory comes with a question. How long can this phantom army continue to hold against the desperate and seasoned Wehrmacht? And will the Germans ever discover the full scale of what moved across Siberia under their noses? June 1941. In the German high command bunkers, frustration has reached a fever pitch. Maps are strewn across tables, tank models knocked over in rage. Hitler's generals are stunned. Moscow hasn't fallen. Instead, fresh Soviet troops, the ones they didn't even know existed, have stopped the blitzkrieg dead in its tracks. You can almost hear the disbelief in the room, voices raised, officers arguing over reports, some refusing to believe what their own eyes show. Panzer divisions that expected an easy victory are battered and demoralized. Commanders stare at aerial reconnaissance reports, trying to make sense of the phantom army that appeared almost overnight. Where did they come from? They ask, again and again. German intelligence admits, in hushed tones, that they had seen no troop movement coming from Siberia. The Russians moved an entire army across a continent without detection. The word miracle circulates among the frustrated generals, though spoken quietly. Hitler's pride cannot allow it to be credited fully. Meanwhile in Moscow, Stalin allows himself a rare smile. His gamble worked. Moscow is defended. The Siberian divisions are battle-ready, their morale unshakable, their arrival timed perfectly with the German advance. Sorge's intelligence, the meticulous planning of Soviet clerks and engineers, and the courage of thousands of Siberian soldiers have combined into a strategic masterstroke. The city survives, and the Wehrmacht is forced into retreat. But the war is far from over. Stalin knows that this victory is temporary, a delay, not a conclusion. And the Germans, humiliated and enraged, will not forget the phantom army that appeared from nowhere to save Moscow. Somewhere deep in Berlin, plans are already being drawn to strike back. The phantom army has changed the course of the Eastern Front, but one question lingers in every Soviet officer's mind. Could this incredible feat remain secret forever? Or will history eventually uncover the silent heroes who moved an entire army under the noses of the Axis powers? Summer 1941. Moscow breathes a fragile sigh of relief as the snow finally melts, leaving streets slick with slush and ice. The German advance has stalled. The city stands, battered but unbroken, thanks to soldiers who arrived seemingly out of nowhere. You can almost feel the weight of exhaustion in every footstep, every groan of the T-34 engines, every tense glance along frozen parapets. Yet beneath it all, there is pride, fierce and quiet. History will remember the generals, the battles, the front lines. But the true heroes of this operation remain ghosts. One unremarkable railroad clerk in Siberia, countless engineers who kept tracks and locomotives running under impossible conditions, and Richard Sorge, far from the front, whose intelligence allowed Stalin to make the only move that could save the capital. These are the invisible architects of victory. Without them, Moscow would have fallen, and the Eastern Front could have looked very different. The T-34s that rolled across Siberia, the artillery wagons that thundered into position, and the soldiers who endured weeks of freezing travel are now legends in flesh and steel. They have changed the war without fanfare, without recognition, without even knowing the full scale of their own achievement. And somewhere in the corridors of the Kremlin, Stalin knows it, that Moscow owes its survival not only to strategy, not only to courage in combat, but to the audacious, secret march of a phantom army. Yet the Germans will never forget. Hitler and his generals now know that the Soviets possess a capacity for secrecy, speed, and resourcefulness that defies expectation. A phantom army moved thousands of kilometers without notice, reshaping the battle lines before the enemy even realized what had happened. The lesson is clear. Sometimes wars are not won only on the battlefield. Sometimes they are won in silence, in shadows, and on the frozen rails of Siberia. And for those who ask how Moscow survived the might of the Wehrmacht that winter, the answer is simple and almost impossible to believe. One clerk, a few brave engineers, and a spy thousands of kilometers away did the unthinkable. They moved an entire army, hidden in plain sight, and saved a city from destruction.